Well, let's see here. I've got to add the Discord thing. Sorry, I didn't do that. I'm running late today. Uh, I'll tell you why. It still feels bright here. Isn't that crazy? It feels like to me right now it's really dark in here, but the camera really pulls the light out of the room. So we're gonna talk about my latest video. We're gonna talk about what I did last week. I got more videos coming. I think I'm gonna. I mean, I don't know. Work's been really slow, which is a drag because I hate that. I hate a week going by without outside work. I mean, I'm always working on something, so it's not like I don't have something that I'm working towards. But it's always nice to get help getting the bills paid. So, so part of it is what I did last week is part of the reason why it's a little slow. Last week I played in the orchestra for the GDC, which is the Game Developers Conference. And it's a huge event. I mean, I literally saw 2% of it. I flew in Tuesday, flew out Wednesday. I didn't realize that the badge that they gave me was worth like $2,500. So if I get asked to do it next year, I'll probably spend more time up there doing it. But that part of the reason why it's slow is a lot of my work is from game composers, and so they were either prepping to go to GDC and then they were at GDC. So I basically haven't done any work for composers in probably a month for game composers. I've been working on a movie, a really interesting thing that I've been working on. I don't know what the movie's called. Often the case, not so often with movies that I don't know what I'm working on. Games are very common. It's like they have code names and stuff like that. In fact, I've got a couple that I'm in the middle of, and I just found out that there's more coming. So I'm not stressed about work. It's just I would like to be utilizing my skills and hands while they still all work. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a finite number of weeks I can work in my life. I don't know. We'll see. My grandmother had really bad arthritis. I'm 63 and I'm still fine. So I'm hoping that doesn't visit me. My mom didn't have it. My dad didn't have it. So, but they also didn't play guitar. So certain things you might not notice. But hey, Becker, what's going on? Yeah, already live. Yeah. Well, let's see. I don't know if. Okay. Cheers. He's already probably gone. Yeah. So we changed our clocks a couple weeks ago. So probably that's why it seems like I'm on early, or does it seem like I'm on late? I don't know. But I released a new video last week about the Pentatonic guitar that Paul Davids was excited about. And the funny thing about that video, the way they edit the video, in fact, I think I had to do. We were done. We were done shooting in here, and then Then I saw this sitting there and I went, "Oh, you got to check this out." And I handed it to him, and fortunately his videographer was still filming, and he played it and was like, "Oh wait, what's this?" And so he really liked it. So we kind of treated it as if it was the first thing I handed him, or that's how they edited it. The magic of Hollywood, right? Hey, thanks, Holly. Speaking of Hollywood. I don't think Debbie would, but Hollywood. Oh, you're still. Oh, you are leaving. You're still here. Okay. So one of the things that I've a lot of questions I've gotten about this guitar was that you can't just tune regular strings up that. Of course not. No. I mean the E string is up an octave. Well, that's a D now, but when it was E, it was up an octave from a low E string. So yeah, you try to tune a low E string up, you're not only going to break the string, you're probably going to break your bridge off your guitar. So you'd be silly to do that. And so I've actually got an electric light set that I rated for this. And so I am going to do another video of this in about a month, I think. I've scheduled about a month from now that I'm going to do it, maybe a little less, where I'm going to do a bunch of weird tunings on this. So open, it'll be a different scale. And right now, I've got a Kodo scale tuned. Isn't that great? Hey, South Africa, that's amazing. Jim McDougall, what's going on? Love it. I love it. You're probably on a similar time zone as, say, Prague. Is that right? Or you due south of Prague? We've had people from England and Holland here a lot, but you're probably a couple hours later than them. So I'm guessing it's probably where you are. It's 9 at night? No. Yeah, you might be, I'm guessing 7 at night. Hey, I'm correct. I know my geography a little bit. But there's literally, you could do a million different pentatonic type scales on this, because you're kind of limited to a pentatonic scale because we don't have 7 strings, so we can't do a diatonic scale. And the nice thing about doing some kind of pentatonic scale on this instrument is you can have the octaves on the outside. But I think right now I have D, G, A flat, what is that? C, B, E flat. Ooh, that's a. Now another one would be have an A here instead of a. Or I could. These are just really. I mean, it's just dope. And the strings are generally pretty. It's a pretty short scale. It's a parlor guitar. It's pretty short scale. So there's not a lot of tension on these strings, which makes it hard to play in tune. They go out of tune pretty easy because they're kind of on the loose side. But it also means I can kind of futz with them as much as I want. When I do the video, I'll talk about the gauges. I mean, I can tell you right now, 24, 17, 13, 13, 10, 10. No. I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right. So the 10, obviously you can tune to E because that's what it normally is. This is right now, that's tuned to E flat, so obviously not a problem. The other 10 here. So basically what I think of as, you can think of as a D, G, B, B, E, E. And then if you're comfortable tuning any of those strings, like I would be fine tuning an E to an F. I'd be fine tuning the B to the C. The G to the A might be a little bit of a push. I'd be more tempted to go B to down to A, but the G could go down to F or F sharp or even E or whatever, but it's going to get pretty pitchy. And then the low D string, I actually had tuned up to E in the video because I had an E minor pentatonic, which in that video I had it tuned to E, G, A, B, D, E, so just an E minor pentatonic scale. Anyway, so that's what that was. Now the GDC that I played for last week was, I can't remember if I talked about it or not. But I was a little stressed about it. I hadn't really played live with an orchestra before. I mean, maybe a couple little things. At church, sometimes we'll have some string players, but that's totally different. We did have click, which helped. I had the music in advance with click and the tracks and everything, and charts. They're in my gig bag though, so I don't have them here, but they were pretty involved. Some of the stuff was pretty hard. Some of the stuff I had to send back and say it's not playable, which I'm glad I did because I really didn't want to be too stressed. There was one piece that I feel like I didn't really nail very well, and it kind of featured me, mainly because the feel was very syncopated, and it was just kind of odd. and I worked it hard. I really did work it hard. But everybody thought it went great. I made some contacts. Like I said, had I known that the pass was, I can show you send you a video of it. Had I known the pass was $2,500, I would have stayed longer. And you know what I got paid for it was less than what I spent on the pedal board that I ended up using for it, because I couldn't bring my full rig unless I drove up, and I didn't want to deal with that. My eyesight's not good enough to drive in strange places at night. I don't, you know, I try not to. You know, maybe once I have the cataract surgery, at some point I'm supposed to get that in the next 2 to 3 years. Once I get that, then maybe it'll be easier to drive at night. I don't know. Some people tell me that. But I flew up. And, you know, because I was kind of stressing about it, I flew up. I went ahead and flew first class, which really didn't cost that much. I got a great deal on a flight from Burbank to San Francisco. And then I booked myself at the hotel across the street. Now, the crazy thing is when I went to book the hotel through my app, the hotel app, it was $1,100 a night. And I was like, oh, shoot. But the GDC had a website for people that were coming that they had pre-booked rooms. So I went through them, and it was $400 a night. And I'm like, okay, so I only did one night because with taxes and the fees and everything, like the parking, I didn't have a car, but for some reason I had to pay some kind of parking thing. It was $512 or something. So all a tax write-off. But yeah, I appreciate that, Catherine. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's like the oncoming cars, you know, cause issues. So I've heard that the refraction lessens. Let me try to find this video from the thing so you guys can watch it later to kind of get a sense of what I was doing. You can hear me sometimes. Let's see. I want to make sure that I'm not going to accidentally play volume. Here we go. But I've got some ideas for a lot of videos. In fact, somebody just commented on my business of making music, and I have like 70 titles for that. I have so many ideas for that channel in particular. Yeah, so this is the one. So this is someone just that filmed from the GDC, and so you can kind of see. Wait, did I hit? Oh no, sorry, copy. I just posted the. Okay, didn't want this. Delete, remove. Okay. Yeah, here we go. So you can click on that and check out the concert. There's like about 16 minutes of. It was an hour long. Fortunately, Austin put me in the back of the orchestra with the flutes and the piano player, so it was totally fine. I was hidden. I was afraid he was going to put me in front. I was also afraid he was going to make me stand, which I'd been spending. So every morning I got my coffee. I did this for about a month. As soon as I got charts, I started doing this. And first I had maybe charts for 3 or 4 of the pieces. Some of the pieces were 12 pieces in one, so it was a lot of different switching guitars, switching sounds. But one of the flute players was a guest flute player. He's a Will Roger, who won all sorts of awards for Helldiver score, and also for the Star Wars Outlaw score. He scored that. And he was, I think, pretty impressed with my playing. He followed me on all the socials, Facebook friends now. So hopefully he's in Seattle. Hopefully I'll get to do some work for him. That would be amazing. I need to send him my instrument list. But yeah, he's a guy. Now the thing is, a lot of times when these composers do really well and they win all these awards, they spend the next year traveling around the world conducting and doing stuff, and it's just doing their music everywhere. Austin's done that, Barton's done that, Gordy's done that. All the so many of the composers I work for kind of do those kind of things. So then they don't call for a while, and I'm like, am I persona non grata? I'm so full of self-doubt. But yeah, it's so again, yeah, like I said, I was pretty stressed. But I had my own monitor, so I had my guitar and a monitor plus the prelays. And what they did was the clicks were in our ears. Nobody could hear the clicks in the audience, just the orchestra. And they had string players from the San Francisco Conservatory of Music, so they were students. The horn players, it was just trombones and French horns, I think. I didn't see any trumpets or anything. So trombones and French horns, they were from the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. So they were pros. They were kind of like, they were the ringers. And then the flute, us back here, we were kind of in the back row, we were kind of the, Austin brought in, like the keyboard player was a friend of Austin's. I'm friend, the flute player and the singer and flute player. So there was a girl next to me that was singing and playing flute. You can hear her and see her in this video I posted. There were, and then Kristen came with all sorts of flutes. She plays hundreds of instruments, but she's got these, Indian flutes, and she's got piccolo and flute, and she's oboe and bassoon, and not bassoon. She didn't play bassoon, but French horn or English horn. Sorry, French horn is what we had over on the other side. 3 of those, and so it was. And one of the things I kind of came to realize is that when you're in an orchestra, you don't get the big picture. You hear the people around you, but you kind of have to trust the process. And that's why they have a conductor, because we had click and I had so many bars to count, I rarely made eye contact with Austin because I knew where everything was. The only, and I didn't want to lose count and lose focus. And me, squirrel, it's like, all of a sudden the French horns do something over here, and I'm like, oh shoot, what bar was I on? So fortunately we did two run-throughs, like ran through everything twice on Tuesday afternoon, and then Wednesday morning we did a tech rehearsal, ran through everything twice, and then we did the show. And I had a couple brain farts. One was, dang it, I was doing, in fact, Will, that composer, thought it was really cool. I was doing EBow, and I was playing one of his melodies on EBow. And the first interval, when you play EBow, everything's done on one string. Generally, I can move around, but where's my EBow? Oh, here it is. I'm gonna have to. Oh, you know what? My system is kind of torn apart right now. So, but I was using the EBow in rehearsal, and I did it perfect all 4 rehearsals, all 4 run-throughs, and then. Is basically what I was supposed to play. And I was so stressed about this first octave that I wasn't paying attention to my EBow, and it went over the pickup and made this horrible, horrific sound. And like I said, it didn't happen. So I thought something was wrong with my system. I immediately went to like, oh crap, is my pedal busted? And then I realized, oh no, I had my EBow too far to the right. I mean, it literally is a game of millimeters. And so that was kind of a brain fart. I was like, I don't want to say it was my shining moment, my moment to shine, but I had a few of those. I had a bunch of solo moments, but that was one of the ones where I just, gosh darn it, I was like, dang it. So I don't think that made the highlight reel. I was fishing for it. I thought I watched the whole thing, and it just kind of jumps around from one song to another, but. And then, and because I just had one night in a hotel, before I couldn't, when I got there early, I couldn't check in. So I had my suitcase and my guitar with me. And my suitcase had all my, pedals and stuff like that in it. So I couldn't really I didn't want to walk around the whole convention with a suitcase. That just felt stupid. So I left it in the green room. It was safe there. And once I found that and walked around a little bit, but really didn't do a whole lot of exploring because I didn't want to get too far away from anything in case they needed help or something like that. So, so it ultimately went really well, and I think I made some good connections and a lot of people. So if Austin asks me to do it next year, Beth said, would you do it again? Because of as much stress as it caused. She was worried that it was raising my blood pressure. It didn't. But you all have probably done these kind of things where you do some kind of musical or some kind of show or is a big production or something, or it could be any kind of big thing that you're part of, and it's a ton of work, and the whole time you're going, remind me not to do this next year. And then you get to the end, and everybody's so relieved, and everybody's so happy, and you're all like, you all went through war together, and you're like brothers and sisters, and it's like, oh crap, I'm gonna do this again. So when Beth asked me if I would do it again, I said, yeah, and because, and I would probably stay longer and take advantage of that badge. And I would spend money. I would just spend a bunch of money and maybe 3 nights instead of 1 night. Go to the events, things like that. Meet a lot of people, a lot of dinners, a lot of hangs. The area wasn't very good. I walked with some friends to a jazz club just 2 blocks away on Mission Street. And I got bored and tired and wanted to get back to my hotel room. Again, this is the first, I was up since 3 in the morning. So I was like, I got to go home. And I kind of walked the gauntlet between all the zombie, fentanyl users and the, whoever they were. There were a lot of homeless people and stuff like that. And fortunately, no one bothered me. I kept my head down and walked fast, but I was by myself. I probably shouldn't have done that. I should have probably waited for my friends, but they were going to hang out all night. And I was like, yeah, I can't do that. So, but, there's a lot of things happening at the convention center. They have a lot of rooms booked for evening stuff. And so I could have been schmoozing the whole time if I wanted to. Probably should have. I got to finally meet Jason Graves, who's a really good composer. And he... we're like brothers. Man, we even look like we're the same height. It's so funny. I'm deaf in my right, or I'm deaf in my left ear basically, and he's deaf in his right ear. So we stood up, we sat next to each other on our good ears. And his wife and my wife, they both know which side to stand on. It's so funny. So yeah, it was really fun getting to know him. We had lunch together, and we're going to be hopefully working on some stuff together real soon. I already worked on, I can't talk about it. Again, the game stuff is the stuff you can't talk about. But anyway, so I put a premise in here. The Beatles couldn't happen today. People, I don't know if you're checked in and you're expecting me to talk on that or wanting me to, so now I'm going to start talking on that. And feel free to interject. A lot of reactions to that statement is okay, boomer. And I was trying to think about how to say that a Beatles couldn't happen again is kind of what I'm saying. And to me, it's incredibly obvious. But the Beatles' impact on music was insane. I'm thinking about doing a video on this. I could do 2 videos on it. I could do one on the Beatles' impact on music, and I could do a video on the Beatles couldn't happen again with more research and things like that. But there were a bunch of historical things that happened that led up to the Beatles. One was the baby boom. So the baby boom started in 1946, right after the war. So, and then I'm not sure when it peaked. Somebody look that up and see when did the baby boom peak. I'm at the end of the baby boom. I'm kind of a 61. I'm kind of a baby buster, but they do say that baby boom went to 64, which makes sense. That's an 18-year window, and then the next Gen X starts in 64, which, not sure why they call Gen X and that Y and Z. Now what are they going to call it now? Well, not the next one. Anyway, they're not breaking them up in 18 years anymore. It seems like they're shorter now, but 18 years makes sense for a lifespan of a birth era. But basically, you had an insane amount of 13-year-olds to 15-year-olds when the Beatles came to America in 64, and probably never had as many up in that till that point and since. And so the ground was fertile for a big pop act. Oh, from Google, the peak year for this was 57 with 4.3. Okay, loud. So 57. Those would be those kids would be 7 years old. Which is interesting because in 57, then you would be in Summer of Love, you would be 12. So that's not, yeah, so interesting. So 70s, early 70s was where a lot of the, the baby boomers peaked as far as being of music buying age or whatever. The other thing that happened was the Kennedy assassination. So, America lost its innocence, right? I mean, I think America lost its innocence long before that. Civil War for one, but the Civil War. I mean, in '64 there were maybe a couple people that had been in the Civil War that were still alive. So that was long. That was hit in the history books. World War II wasn't, and World War II was kind of the contributing factor to the Beatles being created. And particularly Liverpool was a big war town, and there was bombing in Liverpool, right? I know London got the Blitz. Edinburgh didn't really get bombed at all. I know that, but but Liverpool was a shipping center, a construction center, big shipping thing, and that's part of the reason why the Beatles came about was because, particularly Paul's dad would bring, right? Or no, it was John's dad that would bring records. John's dad was a what's that called? A merchant marine, I think. Was it John's dad that was a merchant marine? And would bring records from the United States or wherever, with blues and Buddy Holly and things like that. It was not stuff that was necessarily easy to find in Liverpool in, the late 50s. Case in point, my grandmother brought a Beatles record in '63 back here because she goes, these guys are really popular in England. I think my grandkids would like it. And so she brought back probably Love Me Do or something like that, or Please Please Me on a 45. And she was ahead of the curve, my grandmother, on that. But but there were, and I always say that, when the Beatles hit the U.S., if you went to a record store, there would be about 4 categories of music, maybe 4 categories. So 63, 64, you might have 3 categories. There would be classical, and they might even have their own room. I remember working at a record store, and the classical department always had their own room, because they didn't want to hear the rock stuff. So you went into the room, glass box, and it was all Mozart and opera and crap. I'm joking, not crap. And then there was it could be 2 categories. It could be instrumental, which was jazz, or that could be anything that was instrumental that Texas swing, anything like that would be instrumental. And then there would be vocal music, and that could be Frank Sinatra and the Beach Boys, or Dinah Shore and Jan and Dean. Or they might have a country and western section, where they would take like Slim Whitman or something like that and put him in his own section with the country and western, the country swing stuff, the western swing stuff. So, but music was not fragmented at all, and there might be a pop section. You might have a section, it wouldn't be called pop, it would be called popular music, and it would have been Elvis Presley, it might be Frank Sinatra or Neil Sedaka, Beach Boys, things like that. And there were, the early Motown stuff, but again, it was like music was about to fragment. Like if you took a glass vase and dropped it on the ground and it just shattered everywhere. That's what music was about to do. And the Beatles kind of ushered that in. And, folk music existed, but it might have had, you guys, some of you are older than me. You can tell me what sections you remember in early record stores. When I really started going to record stores, it would have been in the 70s. So by then, it had already happened. There was rock sections and folk sections and country sections and pop sections. And then eventually there might be heavy metal. Well, they're not record stores anymore, and they don't, and there might be film score soundtracks or something, but they're not, there are very few record stores in the world anymore. I don't even know if the one in Hollywood is still there. What's the big one in Hollywood? I mean, probably that was the last record store I went to be honest. Well, there's a couple of, there's one in Pasadena, two in Pasadena, but Canterbury is still there. And so you can still find, CDs there. I don't know how they make a living. I mean, you don't have a CD player in your car anymore. I do. I drive an old car. Beth's CD player stopped working. In fact, the CD was stuck inside it, so couldn't do anything about that. But she's got a new car, so she doesn't have a CD player. But everybody's using streaming now. Which is another interesting thing. I could go outside thing there. But the Beatles were interesting because they toured for a while, and then they stopped touring. And because they stopped touring, that's why they were able to create so much. They were getting very creative in the studio, and they just basically camped out in the studio and lived there. They treated it like a 9-to-5 job, which was kind of how it was done. They just kind of did that. They got their tea and they started working. I mean, if you've watched Get Back, you can kind of see that. And, they just would work and they would hash it out. Tower Records closing signal at the end for me. Yep. And there's a Tower record still in Japan, but I think it's the last one. It's still there, though. And vinyl's making a bit of a comeback. Young people really like having a record player. I don't think they have the kind of record players that we had. Like, I had a nice turntable, a direct drive, with a strobe, and never amazing speakers, but, that was a thing. You have a 10... And and a CD change in your car. Well, the multi-changer thing you can totally do, yeah, because that's wired in and controlled remotely, isn't it? So, but a tape deck, that's amazing. The Digitech Freak Out pedal. Oh, I'll check that out. Far easier to use, and it uses on all the strings. I'll check that out. Yeah, I could use something like that. In fact, I'll check it out right now. Let me go find it. Digitech Freak Out pedal. Okay. Yeah. What would be nice is to have. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I'll check it out. Yeah, I guess you can control how crazy it is. 225. Let me get a link for it, and if anybody's interested to check it out, and if you buy it, I still like the EBO. There's a certain sonic quality to it. I doubt that the Freak Out does that, but there's an Amazon link. I make probably, I don't know, a couple % off that. So if you buy it, I might make $4 or something. Let me see let me see my earnings. It's always kind of makes me laugh. I got $6 coming at some point. I think I have it set to like $50. It has to generate $50 before it'll. Let me close. Let me add to cart so I remember. No thanks. Okay. Now, so it's also a feedback generator. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, and I basically go through one pedal on my floor here in my studio, just a slight compression going into Logic and everything. But sometimes I have all the power here to add pedals anytime I want to. So I got the cables just ready to go. So I usually, even in sessions, if I bring a bunch of pedals, I don't have a pedal board. I just hook up the one I'm going to use for that song or the two. That way I'm not going through all those pedals and the noise and the cables going bad and all that stuff, batteries or whatever I need for the pedal, power supplies, all that stuff. I make sure it's just a pretty simple setup. And then going to the next song, I change pedals and so on and so forth. I just find that's a cleaner sound. I've had pedal boards. I don't mind them. I'm not opposed to them. But I tend to keep it pretty simple. So let's see what else. So yeah, so music got so fragmented that it would be really hard for one band I'm talking about one band to have the kind of impact on everybody that the Beatles had. And the Beatles had a lot of firsts. You know, they did a lot. I mean, I don't know if the White Album was the first double album, but it was definitely there. Somewhere I saw a list of all the things the Beatles did first, and it was pretty impressive. One of the things I mentioned last week that I felt like was really a contributing factor to the Beatles' popularity is they had 4 singers, whereas the Stones had 1 singer. They're hugely popular and still exist. Mostly 1 singer with the Stones. Zeppelin had 1 singer. That was later, but Beach Boys had multiple singers. But the singers had different personalities. You know, like John and Paul were totally different, and George was different. Ringo was very different, and so you had this capacity to not be redundant musically. Was it a giant promotional scheme? You know, like the Beatles had, at one point, they had 10 songs in the top 20 in February 1964 when they arrived here. Like pretty much every song on the album was in the top 20. I think they had 7 in the top 10 or something like that. It was crazy. Made me think we were having a debate. Hey, Charlie. Yeah, I agree, Holly. Streaming is not quite there. I mean, Tidal, if you spend the extra money to get Tidal, I wonder how much with Tidal if you have a lot of buffering, you know, because Tidal is more expensive, but they use better quality files. I don't really, I mean, I listen to the radio, to be honest. Part of the thing I love about radio is you don't have any control over the playlist. So you're going to hear something that you didn't pick. Kind of like, what was the original streaming? Not Napster. The original streaming. Oh, I can see it. But, you know, you would kind of say, I like Radiohead, and then they'd play Radiohead, and then they'd play Coldplay, and then they'd play Tom Petty or something. You're like, well, that doesn't really fit with Radiohead. And it's cool because, you know, when you pick a radio station because you kind of like certain bands or certain art. Pandora, thank you, Tony. Tony jumps in with the save. Yeah, Pandora. You know, Pandora. And again, it's just like the amount of, I mean, you've got gent, you've got polka gent, you've got hip hop gent, you've got, yeah, I'm like, I'm not kidding. There's probably hip hop polka gent. Music's become so fragmented, and people are very, that's again why I like radio, and it's probably a boomer thing, but I like it when you play something I wasn't expecting. Now, that's not radio can be tough too, because you listen to an oldie station, you're going to hear songs, you know, every single song is going to be, if I listen to like a classic rock station, I'm going to hear Tom Petty, I'm going to hear Zeppelin, I'm going to hear the Beatles, but I won't hear old Beatles, I'll hear the later Beatles, you know, the Abbey Road, you know, maybe Rubber Soul Beatles. Yes, I do like, yeah, and so, or you could subscribe to a playlist, someone who you really like the music they choose. That's a really good way to go on streaming. I've done that. I've subscribed to some playlists, and they update them. And as a band or an artist, that's one of the keys to success, is to get your songs in these curated playlists that are highly followed. You know, if you can get your music into a playlist that has 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million subscribers, then you're going to start to get some spins. I don't make very much money from streaming. I mean, I don't have any hits, and I think. My understanding, and I don't know how exact this is maybe not quite this high, but someone told me at one point that on Spotify, 1 million spins generates $7,000 for all the stakeholders. Okay, but keep in mind there's a lot of stakeholders there, so some of that's just going to go to the writers and publishers for PRO. Performance royalties, performing rights organizations like BMI and ASCAP to be distributed to writers and publishers. Some of that's going to go to the writers and publishers in the form of mechanicals. And again, I've heard different numbers, but like I've heard that basically 150 spins equals one mechanical. So if you were to download my song on iTunes, that's one mechanical. So you pay 99 cents. 9 cents goes to the writers and publishers. And if I'm the full writer and publisher of that song, and I have songs up that are that way, then I would get 9.1 cents for that song. If I sold 10, I would get 91 cents. If I sold 100, I'd get $9.10. If I sold 1,000, I would get $91. If I sold 10,000, I would get $910. If I sold 1,000,000, I would get $9,100, right? Is the thinking. If I had 1,000,000 downloads on iTunes. One of the things that they do in the business, and you basically kind of have to sign off on this, on a CD sale, they only give you 75% of 9.1 cents because of returns. But with iTunes, they had to get rid of that because nobody returns a download from iTunes. But I remember when iTunes first came out and you could choose like a category to look in, and that category list was this long. There were 20, 30, 40 categories. And again, so music, when the Beatles hit just shortly after that, 65, 66, 67, you really started to see the categories of music at record stores, and it got far worse later. And so I feel like that it made it more difficult for anyone to capture everyone, to capture everyone's attention. Michael Jackson came pretty close, right? Even Justin Bieber came, a lot of people knew who Justin Bieber was. I wouldn't say a lot of people bought Justin Bieber records, but a lot of us bought Michael Jackson records. And I don't think that people that were into classic rock would have bought Michael Jackson. But Michael Jackson kind of bridged that R&B, soul, Motown sound with the pop. And then bringing Eddie Van Halen on Thriller, there was a little bit of a bridge there to the rock world. That was a freaking brilliant move. Not to mention the fact that Thriller is a lot of Toto is on that. So a lot of it is musicians that we heard on the rock stations. But Toto was really, they were pop musicians that happened to have a rock band. Toto was a rock band, I guess. But they were my favorite band when I moved to California. Like I had every Toto record. I would devour everything. I would try to transcribe everything that Lukather did. Because I kind of thought when I got to LA that everybody would be asking me to sound like Lukather, which was somewhat true. Oh, yeah. Let me see if I can tell you how. So when I said, okay, so on Spotify, like I said, like, what was it, $7,000 or whatever. So then the artist also gets a chunk. The record company gets a big chunk. But again, if you wrote, recorded, and published and uploaded the song, you would get all of that. So technically, supposedly, if I had 1,000,000 spins on Spotify, and again, remember, 1,000,000 spins on Spotify is not equivalent to 1,000,000 downloads on iTunes. Like I said, it's about 150 spins on Spotify equals one download. Now, one thing I will tell you, Holly, is that one thing I do, like if I go to YouTube to listen to a song, I will try, if I'm going to listen to a Beatles song, I try to go to the Beatles YouTube channel so they make the money from it, not some random person who illegally uploaded a Beatles song, right? So I try to, if I'm gonna seek out a Toto song, I'm gonna go to Toto's YouTube channel to hear the song. That way they get that money. Same thing with streaming. So if you buy an album, say you've got an album that you bought in the 60s and that you've worn it out. I mean, you've played it 1,000 times. Well, the artist doesn't make any more money on that. But in streaming, every time you listen, the artist is making something. Okay, now I'm going to see, I think I've got some BMI statements here. Let me just read off some numbers. Let's see, downloads. Would it be there? I mean, I can log in and let me just see. yet. BMI. All right. I think this is my latest statement. All right, let me just spread this out. Let me search for Spotify. Now, keep in mind, I don't have any hits. All right. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 songs that generated some form of royalty. Let's see. California Reaper was with Miles. Crybaby was with Kelly Jekyll. So this is Spotify Family. My total on that was $13.73. Not life-changing, okay? Peloton. Somebody spun Yellow Raincoat on Peloton. I got 29 spins and I got a penny. Okay, so ETA, I got 126,000 spins. That's a Bieber track, and I got $5.22. So we can run the math. I can do like a little calculation here. So what was I say? 5.21 divided by, is that right? Am I going to want to divide by the 126,000? Let's just say, yeah, equals. So that, but keep in mind on ETA, and this is the writers. So I get the exact same amount for my publisher, but it goes to them and then they send it to me, okay? So it's double all of these numbers. The nice thing about the pop stuff is that I'm getting the publishing share and the writer's share. All right, so I'm getting, on ETA, I'm 17.5% of the song. So it's a very small amount. Let's say it got 1 billion spins. That would be $41,000. So if that's a good amount, right? That's not awful. But when people were saying, oh, I got 1 million spins. Well, million spins is going to be $41. Double that, though. Keep in mind, double that. Because this is the right. So it would be $82,000 if I got 1 billion spins of ETA. And eventually, I might get 1 billion spins of ETA. I'm sure we're in the millions. I know that Home to Mama has... so if I go down these Femme-moi la pas, I don't know. That's an artist named Cordial in France. And that was through the Beat Freaks. 266 spins, 1 penny. But again, that's my percentage on that was 10%. Gold, again, 10%. That was J Rand. 1,100 spins, 3 cents. Heartbreaker, which is another Miles track, 214 spins, a penny. Home to Mama, 49,000 spins, $3.49. I Ain't Shite. That's one of my bigger songs with Benny Main, and that's got 12,000 spins, made 71 cents, double that. And again, this is just Spotify. I don't want you to think I'm not poor talking here, okay? It's just the way the business works now. And so it's a numbers game. I've got, what did I say, 17 songs? Never Dies, another Miles tune. Not for Nothing is Nico and Vince, 700 spins. Lips was 6,000 spins, right? Is that right? Oh, I see it's going to do that. Okay, I can't really tell. Never Die, 1,000, that's another Miles one. Not for Nothing, Nico and Vince. Sun in My Eyes, that's another. Treading Water is doing well. That one's got 89,000 spins. And I made $2. And then there's a remix of it that's got another 3,400 spins that I made 8 cents on. Okay, let me just, I'm sorry, I got to catch up on some. Would the Beatles, would another band have merged? Hey, Charlie, but that's another story. But I think that potentially, I don't know. There were so many bands that emerged. That's a great question. If not the Beatles, then who? And in my opinion, I think the Beatles were, it was a two-way street. I don't think there would have been somebody else. I'll take the controversial view. And sorry, I'm getting blanched out by this my statement here. I wish it had more black on it than white. Let's see, Spotify free. So Spotify family, I made $13.73. Spotify free, I got $2.42. Spotify premium, I got $22.66. Spotify student, I got 74 cents. Spotify student, and that's it. I don't know what this is. STRU brand, STYR brand B2B, $1.30. Tidal, I got 48 cents from Tidal. Not a whole lot of spins there. It's not a lot of subscribers at Tidal. YouTube free. Let's see what I got from YouTube free. $3.80, and YouTube Music, I got 58 cents. Let's see, ETA, 17,000 spins, and I got 35 cents. So, I don't know, we can run some math on that too. Again, most of these songs, or none of these songs do I own 100% on. I don't see any royalties for the songs that I own that I uploaded because nobody's really listening to them. Okay, let me get rid of that for a second. All right, so that's a great question. We got a good quorum here. We've peaked at 29, so that's good. Yeah, I always try to be honest with you guys about the money stuff. Okay, I really do try to be honest with you guys. Okay. So Charlie thinks that if not the Beatles, another band would have emerged. It was about presence and selection. Mainstream was as competitive then as now. The idea that the best artist top the charts is chimerical. Is that a word? Unpopular opinion. I should have mentioned. I think Becker. Whoops. Becker's back. Sorry, I'm trying to not click on something here. Okay. Don't you need like 800,000 streams a month to make like $15 an hour? Well, I mean, if you owned everything, I would think. But here's the thing. Who was that? Plastodon. So here's the thing. ETA, I literally wrote in about 5 minutes. So if you calculate that on an hourly basis, I probably made $1 million an hour for ETA. So it just depends. I mean, that's the business. You're taking chances. You're trying. You're throwing things out there and seeing what sticks. If something sticks, it pays for all the other chances you took. So on average, $15 an hour. Let's see, $15 an hour times 40 hours times 52 weeks equals $31,000. So yeah, there's no way I could live on $31,000 a year. It's just not in LA. Nobody does. But also, I wouldn't be doing a $15 an hour job in LA. Those are designed for people that are in high school. They're not supposed to be a permanent landing position. Those jobs, and I've had minimum wage jobs. My first minimum wage job, I think, paid $3.25. That got me to enroll in college. I went, yeah, I can't do this. I'm going to college. So yeah, but I ultimately the money I'm getting from Spotify is mailbox money. It's money while I sleep. The money I'm getting from all of the TV shows that I write music for, which is the largest probably single percentage of my income. Is television shows that I write for. And that is money for work done already. So, you know, I could spend, 2 hours writing a song for a TV show, and that thing could make me thousands of dollars. I could write something for a pop artist that gets on their record and the record doesn't get released. I get nothing for it. And that happened a lot. I co-wrote 5 or 6 songs on the Justin Bieber, Cody Simpson record. The only song that got released was Home to Mama. So, yeah, so 800,000 spins a month. I mean, I think that's pretty good. Like if I had 800,000, well, let's look. See, again, I don't have any songs here that I own 100% of. And one song, and again, this is just, keep in mind, there's multiple Spotify platforms that I was getting paid for. Spotify Family, Spotify Free, Spotify Premium, Spotify Student. There's 4 different, okay? And let me run the numbers. I'm going to have to write these down, all right? Let me run some numbers. We're talking about the Beatles, but we're talking about how money is made in the business too, all right? And I may use this so I can do some calculations. I'm going to do some calculations. But I just want to open up a doc so that I can, here we go. New document. Thank you. Again, we're going to have a white screen here, but I'm going to make it nice and big. Okay, so I have Spotify Family, Spotify Premium, Spotify Family, and Spotify Student. All right. So we're going to do some calculations. And I'm going to use ETA because it's the song that has the most spins, and I know, the percentage I have on it. Okay. So Spotify Family, do a rough estimate here. Okay, so what did I do? $5.21 for 126 spins. See, you're saying 800,000 spins. That, now again, we double all these numbers because these are all I own publishing too. But we're just talking about the writer's share at this moment. Okay, so I'm going to divide that by the number of spins, 126,000 spins. Okay, that's 0.0000, well, let's see. So 0.0 would be 0. Yeah, it's way down there. Let's see. So it was 0.000041349. As we're getting into the pi thing per spin. And again, this is 17%. I mean, okay, so per spin. So how would I come up with a calculation if I owned 100% of that? So do I divide that by 17.5 equals even smaller number and multiply that times 100. So if I owned 100% of that, then I would get 0.002. Yeah, so basically a penny every 50 spins, right? So that is weird. And this is, again, double that, so that would be a penny every 25 spins. But keep in mind there's mechanicals that are paid too. So I would see mechanicals from that. My understanding is that I would get 17, well, in this case, I would get 9 cents every 100. So the BMI money is less than the mechanical money. And both the mechanical money comes from my publisher. They collect that and give it to me. They take a little percentage and then they give it to me. No, yeah, it's, again, a living wage, but again, Placidon, one of the things about it is that it's cumulative. So yeah, if you've got a song that's generating 800,000 spins, and we're going to continue on this calculation. So Spotify, so if I own 100%, then it would be 0.00236, let's say. All right, Spotify, let's look at Spotify Premium and see if the number's different there, all right? So Spotify Premium, all clear. I got $1.02. Let's go ahead and put $1.02 divided by 24,000 spins. 24,500. 24,500. Okay, equals pretty much the same number. Almost identical. Just micro. So it's 0.00041632. So the other one was 413, and this is 416. So it's slightly smaller. Okay. If I divide that by 17.5 and then multiply that times 100, it's literally a very small fraction higher. So Spotify Premium is about the same as Spotify Family. And then what did I say? Oh, Spotify Free. Let's see what that pays. That's going to be the least, I would think, because there's no... well, I got to find an amount here. ETA is definitely going to be on that. Oh, wait. That was free. Okay, sorry. I thought I had 4 categories. Do I only have... Oh, Spotify Premium. Okay, sorry. I messed up. Okay, so that second one was Spotify Free. All right? So actually, Spotify Free pays a little bit more than Spotify Family. But it's basically the same. All right, let's see what we get with Premium. That should be the highest paying. And again, I'm not going to live... I'll buy a dinner with my wife. And these are quarterly numbers. Okay, so I get these every quarter. All right, so Spotify Premium ETA paid $8.75 for did I say 875? 74. Okay, and I'm going to divide that by 133,000 spins. Yeah, so this is about 50% higher. Still a really low number, but it's 0.000406571. Oh, I added another. What's the next number? 4. All right. Now, if I divide that by 17.5, which is the percentage I own of that song, equals, and multiply that times 100 as if I wrote the song, then we're looking at a per spin would be 0.037. So 375. So you're looking at every 30 spins I get a penny. And with an artist like Bieber, you're going to get in the hundreds of thousands of spins. Like I said to people, when you're talking about millions of spins, you're not really talking about real money. You've got to be talking about billions of spins. Okay? And where that happens is when people stop listening to radio, which is happening, and people listen to streaming. It's very much the shift. And those numbers are getting up there. When Drake released a record 7 years ago, whatever, it got 5 billion spins, like the first week. So I ran the numbers on that, 5 billion spins. So 7,000 for a million spins. So 5 billion would be, is that 5,000 million, right? Times 5,000 equals $35 million in 1 week for all the stakeholders. So 35 million a week's pretty good pay. Quail, I'm going to probably do a full-on video. There's no way the Beatles could happen today. I think the more controversial question is, would somebody else have taken their place? And it was a perfect storm of two different things. right? It was the soil was fertile and the plant was the right plant. Um, any other plant would have been a weed. The Rolling Stones would never have been. I mean, the Stones. Did the Beatles allow the Stones to happen? That's a question also. Oh boy, there's people that would have a problem with that. But all right, so I got one more Spotify to look at. Spotify student, ETA, 37 cents. 37 cents, clear. 30.37 divided by 20, basically 27,000 equals. That's a lot less. Well, it's one. Wait, what was the other ones? I forget. Sorry. Yeah, it's about a third of the others, of the free and the family. So you're looking at 0.000013703. All right, per spin. And if I were to divide that by 17%, 17.5% equals times 100% equals, it's way down there. It's another zero here. So, yeah. So it's not even, you know. And the Spotify student is limited to high school students. I think my daughter had it. Limited to high school students, college students, whatever. Okay, but that's just Spotify. When I go to streaming, I've got, let's see. I'm just going to give you some categories. Amazon Prime, Amazon Unlimited, Amazon Unlimited Free, Apple Family, Apple Individual, Apple Student, Apple Trial, Apple Virtual Trial or something, I don't know. Verizon Trial, Verizon Bundle, Apple Verizon, Apple something else, Apple, I don't know what that is, Audio Mac, I got 4 cents from them. Deezer, I got 3 cents from Deezer. Hoopla Music, which is actually, Hoopla is the library, is your local library. I got a penny from that. iHeart All Access, I got a penny from that. Internet, whatever that means, I got a penny from that. Peloton, I got a penny from that. And again, double that, so 2 pennies. Quarterly, that's 8 pennies a year. But again, everything that's on this statement, all the pop stuff that I do, and the pop stuff I do is icing. It's not the cake, okay? Yeah, there's so many declines in Hollywood, it's not even funny. Like the movies, the movie theaters, that business almost is going to completely disappear. You'll see about as many movie theaters in someday as you will. I mean, probably not this bad, but as you will record stores. That's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, it's the streaming thing. People, and COVID really obviously killed the movie theater industry, but COVID also made people more prone to want to stay at home. I have to be proactive about going out to lunch and going and doing stuff because my natural inclination is to be a bit of a homebody. It's kind of how I'm wired anyway. I was always that way. I would have been perfect for homeschooling. I hated going to school every day. How much money do labels spend on an album for artists like Bieber? Do trends affect the budget? For instance, if streaming numbers decline, does it impact the investment? Well, that's a good question. I think Justin's working on a record right now, but it more feels like he's just kind of hanging out with friends, and I doubt anyone's getting paid. When we were at Henson, that was not cheap, and he would have Henson booked out, solid. So the record companies are definitely spending a lot of money. And when I'm playing on stuff, I'm getting what I call multi-track rate. So when I'm working on pop records, I'm typically getting minimum 300 an hour. So if I do an 8-hour day, I'm making $3 or $4 grand. So, and then you multiply that times anybody else who's, working on the record that day or whatever. Engineer, mixers, things like that, mastering. And then there's production fees. With ETA, because I wrote that, because I was listed as producer on that, they gave me 1/4 point, and I got 1/4 of the production fee, which was a pretty big fee. So, yeah, you don't have any of this. Yeah, those services. I mean, I've not heard. Some of my. But again, when you upload a song, Spotify Premium, YouTube free, Excite, Tidal. I don't know what that one is. So there's a bunch of them, but it's not. It's again, I'm not making a lot of money on it. $100 or so from those streamers. But that's U.S. Then there's foreign. It's really hard to exactly calculate because the amount of money I get from my quarterly publishing payment, which is separate from BMI, that is a better indicator on how my songs are doing and how much they're generating. And lots of money comes in that way. So, for example, I got a letter before I signed with my current publisher, which is Universal. I got an email from this Japanese music supervisor asking for permission to use ETA on a TV show, and I think the fee was $15,000. So they were going to pay $15,000 to the stakeholders, and I would get 17% of that. So 17% of 15,000 for the right to use that song, plus I would get back end on it for the radio play. Okay, so 15,000 times 0.175 equals $2,600. Okay, so I get $2,600 to send an email saying, yeah, no problem. I say yes to all of that stuff. Now the law has changed where the Congress changed the law on it where they only need to get 51% of approval to get a song on a show rather than 100% approval, because there are some times where there are states that control 0.005% and they're not going to reply to an email because it's just not enough money to justify replying to that email. So, but now that money goes to my publisher, and then they send it to me quarterly. They take their percentage out for collecting that and dealing with those emails. Those emails now automatically go to them. I don't get those emails anymore. I had Home to Mama. I got asked to do. They wanted to use it for American Idol. 2 years in a row, I got emails from American Idol saying, "Hey, can we use the song?" And I said, "Of course." But the problem was that we had a splits conflict. And there was 120% royalty when there can only be 100%. You can't have 120% royalty, so they didn't use them. We went to a theater just recently. Oh, Alex and I did. We went to see A Complete Unknown. It was great, and I love the theater experience. It's just so expensive. That's And remember, the same thing happened with DVDs. And the studios can only blame themselves. But they'd have a movie in the studios, and they would do this promo, spend all this money. They could spend $50 million promoting a big movie. It would be in the theaters, and it might say it's fairly successful, and it goes 7, 8, 10 weeks, okay, in the theaters. And they pull it out of theaters. Well, 5 weeks later, they'll release it on DVD. It's like, what a bonehead move, but they're trying to utilize the money they spent promoting it. They don't want to have to spend that again to promote the DVD. And I get that, but what it did was it trained people not to go to the theaters. They go, I'll just wait for the DVD to come out. And instead of spending, $10 a ticket plus $10 for popcorn. Again, I'm talking, we're talking 90s and 2000s. I'll wait and spend $20 for the DVD, and I can watch as many times as I want, and I can watch in the comfort of my own home. So that, now I feel like popcorn. Dang it. Maybe I'll have popcorn for lunch. So that's a shift, and they're doing the same thing with streaming. They're moving things to streaming too fast. They really need to delay the streaming thing a year at times. If they started delaying the stream, if they have the discipline, but they're trying to make money on these movies, and they're thinking, well, we'll get more spins if we release it now. But what they're doing is they're training people to go, well, it'll be on streaming in a month, so I'm not going to go, right? You know, Maverick, you know, Top Gun Maverick, you know, or whatever. I'll just wait for it to come out on streaming. And so I feel like that's a little bit of a problem for the film industry. They don't have discipline. So Becker, go have a good lesson. Yeah, I mean YouTube. And again, if you're going to use YouTube, if you're going to stream one of my songs, go to the artist and stream it, and I'll make money. A lot of times if people have uploaded it illegally, I won't see any of that money. The leaked songs that got leaked, by the Bieber stuff, I don't see any money for. Excuse me. Yeah, and yeah, now movie tickets are $25. I mean, we went to see a movie. I think we went to a matinee on a Sunday during Super Bowl, and it was empty, which is why we went. And it's, I don't know, it was $17 or something like that for a ticket. So LA is just gonna be more expensive. These were airline seats, so they were, you know, I could have my legs up, and you know, we had big armrests and everything, so it was nice. They were nice seats, and the popcorn wasn't a horrible deal. I remember being able to get 2 drinks and a popcorn for like under 30, but it becomes a big thing, you know, and I'm like, I don't really, you know. Yeah, South Florida is going to be expensive, Max. Yep, Max. Yep. That's yeah. The big cities are going to be more expensive. I go back to Indiana and buy a ticket; it's going to be cheaper. Now, just so you know, on a ticket, on a first-run film, which is when this movie's released, the studio gets 90% of the ticket price. So if you spend $10 on a ticket, let's say, they get $9 of that. The theater only gets $1. That's why popcorn and everything's so expensive. So you can get mad at the theater all you want for everything, but they've got to keep their doors open. There may be some kickbacks on that, like if they if they promote and fill up things, they might get some of that 90% back to them. And a lot of times remember back in the day, the studios owned their own theaters, and then they broke that up. They made that illegal. It's legal again. So you might start to see theaters come out with just their products. But it was illegal for decades. And it's legal again. I didn't really have a problem with it, but sometimes you had small areas where they could only see MGM movies, and you'd have to drive 100 miles to see a movie that wasn't MGM. Yeah, I saw Top Gun Maverick in theater. Yeah, I saw it with Jack. It's funny, now that the boys are married, I hardly ever go see movies, because they were the ones that always say, hey, you want to go see a movie? I'm like, sure, let's do it. And COVID kind of killed that. There was a theater I went to a couple times when we first moved here to LA, into LA proper, and I went to a theater, and both times I got a spider bite. And I'm so like, we haven't been back to that theater. Because I got bit in my arm and then on my leg or something. Like, it was like, what the heck is going on? So I didn't go back there. I haven't been to that theater. But the AMC theater, which is nice, has airline, the first class airline seats. Yeah. Idaho. Yeah, and that makes sense. Yeah. Let me see what, so again, kind of trying to get back to the Beatles thing. That's probably a far more controversial thing. Would there be somebody else to take in their place? I don't know. The Beatles, you could probably name a couple bands, but the thing is that the Beatles kind of inspired those. Now, and there was a question a long time ago on here on the chat that I missed. I was going to answer. But the Beatles' success allowed for Okay, Charlie. Yeah, there would be other Beatles. Let's see. Radio playlist. Holly, what did you say? What? Now. I can't remember, but somebody said, did it lead to other bands? A lot of bands got signed because of the Beatles. We talked about this last week. When Nirvana broke, the record labels all went up to Seattle. They literally have no. They're not, no original thoughts. It's like that Simpsons episode where they're making fun of Fox Television. They're like, we need new TV show ideas. Quick, everybody get their TVs out. And they all have these little mini TVs and they're watching the other channels to get ideas. But how many bands in Seattle got signed just because they were from Seattle? I mean, some good ones like Pearl Jam and Nirvana, Soundgarden, San Francisco, same thing. All the, Hendrix. I don't know, Hendrix wasn't, but you had like Jefferson Airplane and a lot of bands that got signed in San Francisco. A lot of LA, kind of thing. But LA is the music capital of the world, so it's always going to have its. You had the Laurel Canyon sound with the Mamas and Papas and James Taylor, and really technically not from Laurel Canyon at all, but it was part of that sound. Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, all that kind of vibe, kind of coming from the Laurel Canyon area. And then you had the hair bands of the 80s, the Guns N' Roses and all of those bands that got signed in the 80s and 90s from Sunset Boulevard. Literally, it's so funny because it's a street. Laurel Canyon's a road, Laurel Canyon Boulevard, and LA is so specific. It's like, okay, we're going to sign bands from this one street. And then Sunset Boulevard, you had Gazzarri's and all these, the Roxy and the Rainbow Club, Rainbow Room, and all these places on Hollywood Boulevard, and all the band, they signed all the bands, So I don't know if it happened. Was it the Killers? Were they from? No, Killers are British, and that would happen too. There'd be you had all of a sudden the second British invasion, the second wave of Britain bands in the 80s, where you had like Duran Duran, and then they just started signing all these bands. And so that was another thing. But the Beatles created that. They were signing everybody from Liverpool and London, and all these bands got contracts, all these artists got contracts that would never have gotten contracts for two reasons. If the Beatles hadn't existed, for two reasons, because Beatles initiated that. Secondly, the Beatles brought a ton of money into the business. They had to spend it. Michael Jackson, same thing. With Thriller, sold so many records that Epic and Sony was able to sign so many artists and develop them and release them and make some money on them. And a lot of bands, I would say half of the artists that got signed with Michael Jackson money, those records never got released. So there's a lot of records I played on with Justin that never got released. I would say there's probably 200 or 300 unreleased tracks that Justin has. And some of them the record company paid for, Some of them was just like us messing around in the studio, but I guarantee the record company paid for the studio time. And because the record company's paying for the studio time, they own the masters, okay? So when I mentioned about the song, my ETA song getting $15,000 to be used on a TV show, they had to pay $15,000 to the copyright holders for the copyright sync, or the sync. I can't think what that's called. Then there's the master license. They had to pay for that, and that goes to the record company. So they get all of that. So we got 15 grand. They got 15 grand, but they paid to have the record made. They paid for the studio time. They paid the engineer. They paid the musicians. So, great to see you, Jim. Thank you so much for joining us. No, what's the Killers? The Killers from Vegas? Were they from Vegas? For some reason, I always thought they were a British band, but I guess they're from Vegas. There was another band signed from Vegas at that same time. But record companies will do that. There'll be a band from Cleveland to make it big, and all of a sudden they sign 10 bands from Cleveland. Same thing with like Boston. So record company. Now, is it happening now? No. Then they did. Well, the Bieber thing happened. Bieber got discovered on YouTube, and then they signed all these YouTube kids, and those records never got released. I think about that kid. What was his name? I met him at the studio one time. That Ellen. He went on Ellen. Well, he had of YouTube that went viral. He was playing piano at his high school, and the girls were going crazy. He was just a little kid. And thanks, Sadie. Yeah, exactly, Sadie. The vultures emerge. Yep. Yep, and sometimes they get lucky. Like I think with Seattle, I mean, Hole. I wouldn't say Hole was a great band, but I would say Soundgarden, Pearl Jam were both good bands. Prince, even in Minneapolis, he kind of created this little feeder system that he would release artists like Apollonia, The Time, Morris Day and Time. But those were all people that were kind of involved in his movie. But he would release artists every now and then too. Lomita, California. That was right next to Torrance. I know where that is. Talk about cities there in LA. Yeah. So many cities in LA. And again, in LA, when bands got signed, it was like street related. I mean, the Beach Boys were, what beach were they from? Were they from Redondo? What beach were they from? Beach Boys. Oh, Hawthorne. That's not even a beach. Yeah, Hawthorne is right there by Lomita, I think, right? And Hawthorne, like right there. Let's see. Where's Hawthorne? Yeah, I mean it's close. It's beach-ish, but it's not on the beach. Yeah, I forgot. I knew they were from Hawthorne. I forgot about that. So I wonder how many other bands got signed from Hawthorne. Let's see. Notable. Let's do this. Notable people. All right. Well, remember the Beach Boys grew up in Hawthorne. Oh, all of them. Brian, Dennis, Carl, and Mike Love and Al Jardine. All, and remember David Marks. Wilson is a historic landmark now. Okay, Fred Dreyer, NFL player. Yeah. Kuko. Grew up and currently resides he's a singer-songwriter. Jazz critic, Tracy Jones, former. Not seen any other artists. Okay, so Marilyn Monroe lived in the city from infancy to the age 6. Singer Chris Montez grew up in Jack Northrop. Founder of Northrop was from Hawthorne. Oh, it's headquartered there. Technically, I guess that's where my son Jack works there. Let's see. Emmett Rhodes. Don't know who that is. Rapper Big Sky lived in Hawthorne. Oh, Tyler, the Creator, grew up in Hawthorne. Okay, I know Tyler. He's great. Russell Westbrook from the Nuggets grew up in Hawthorne. That's kind of cool. I don't know these other basketball players. Butch Patrick of the Munsters. Was he the kid? Was he the boy in Munsters? Little boy? He grew up in Hawthorne. So yeah, yeah. So I don't know if it doesn't look like any other bands from Hawthorne got signed, but I guarantee a lot. Jan and Dean probably got signed because of the Beach Boys and stuff like that. So I met Tyler, the Creator. Yeah, once at a Bieber session. He was hanging out. So I met Post Malone before Post was anybody, and I didn't know who this kid was. Mike Posner. Alex has worked on a new Mike Posner record. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know who Tyler was necessarily. I just knew he was. My kids knew who he was. It's so often the case. I would, be around people I had no idea who they were. Which is kind of good because you don't want to be a fangirl when you're, working. They won't call you again if you act like a fangirl or a fanboy. But I tend to act like a fangirl. They say, and I have a feeling this is true. I personally have experienced it. But when normal people are around celebrities, they lose 30 IQ points. That's another discussion. Have you ever been around a celebrity and said something stupid? I have. So, anyway, it's just funny. Okay, so yeah, again, the Beatles couldn't happen today. I just don't think that that's possible. I think mainly because music is so fragmented, people's listening habits. There's more people today, but will one band ever capture an audience where everybody was watching Ed Sullivan? Everybody was sitting in front of their TVs. Will that ever happen again? Can you imagine that happening again? For one thing, most people don't even have broadcast TV. So it would be very difficult for all of us to gather and have a shared experience like that. I would say the OJ verdict was a shared experience. I remember Roots was a shared experience. Everybody was watching Roots in the 70s. Everybody went home and we watched the next episode. Everybody, like there was no traffic on the streets. Like everything shut down. When Roots was, it was like a mini series, and I think it aired every night, right? The Beatles, like that kind of thing is not going to happen again. It can't. It was a perfect storm. I don't think that any other band would have taken their place. Like to say that somebody else would have lifted. They would have had you would have had to have somebody with that same talent. Would Pink Floyd exist without the Beatles? That's a toughie. The Pink Floyd, it took a while for their music to start to sell. I mean, their first few records I don't think did as well as their second, third, fourth records. Fleetwood Mac certainly, their first records hardly sold anything until they added Buckingham Nicks. So it's but did Fleetwood Mac and did Pink Floyd and even Zeppelin get signed by record companies that were kind of flush with the money from the Beatles thing? I'll tell you another thing that created Beatlemania, and it was an unintentional thing that, again, would not happen today. Not many people know this, but Brian Epstein sold the Beatles rights for a penny. So if you wanted to come out with a Beatles lunchbox, you only had to pay a penny per unit. The Beatles wigs, the Beatles posters, the Beatles everything. That's not the case today. If you want to do a Justin Bieber lunchbox, you got to pay Universal Studios probably $5 per lunchbox. So some companies are going to go, well, our cost is $4, and we got to pay them $5, and we got to make any real money, we got to charge $20. No one's going to pay $20 for a lunchbox. I don't know anything about lunchbox marketing, but you get my point. It's like it's less likely to happen. Whereas maybe if somebody's, if somebody did that smart thing and said, look, I'll you give me a nickel per item and you can market this artist. If they were already relatively popular, you might be able to take them up to that next level. But the Beatles level, their music, a lot of their music's going to be played for a long time. We're fast approaching the point where no one who is alive today was alive when the Beatles were, anyone born after 1970, and eventually we're all going to be gone. Everybody born before 1970. Sorry to say that, but that's just ultimately true. You're going to have people that weren't alive when the Beatles were in existence as a group. But their music will still be popular. Paul McCartney still sells out stadiums, and his audience is diverse, age diverse. Grand Funk Railroad, great band. Would they have been, but a lot of these artists might have been signed. It just depends on what happened. But would the Stones have, would there have been a British invasion? Would we still be, something would have happened at some point. But the Beatles contributed to the fragmentation of music because they started to get interested in different styles of music and contributing things. And John was more into rock, and then they were. I think the first case of feedback was on a Beatles record. I think they were the first double album. They were, I think, the first album that opened up with Sgt. Pepper's. First album with artwork that pulled out and you could put on your wall or something like that. Like they were breaking ground in so many different ways, and then throwing orchestras on songs. string quartets on yesterday, and then full-on orchestras on Sergeant Pepper's, and uh, uh, um, just the amount of idea diversity that they all brought to the table. I mean, and another controversial thing was ultimately was George Harrison the best songwriter in the Beatles. You might be able to make that argument because some of the best Beatles songs are George Harrison. Something, and Here Comes the Sun, and I feel like those even While My Guitar Gently Weeps is a great song. Wonder how much they paid the girls. What girls? Yeah, complete mad situation everywhere they went. They were the first to do a stadium concert. Like back when they were doing stadium concerts, they would have like 5 acts for them. Everybody had 30 minutes. The Beatles got up for 30 minutes. Their last concert is a movie you can watch. It's the San Francisco Candlestick Park concert, and I heard it. I saw it. Sounded like to me that they had done something with. I mean, I know they used AI to separate the tracks and bring in all these sources. Like there were a lot of cameras there, and they used the audio from all these cameras to create this thing. But I remember seeing video of them playing at like Shea Stadium, and John's just banging, like can't hear himself, so he's just banging on the piano like this. He's not playing anything. He's just he's dog paddling on the piano, and yeah. So that I don't know that. I'd have to watch their hands and see if I'm hearing what I'm seeing. You know what I mean? I felt like they cheated on that, but maybe they didn't. Maybe the Beatles really did play in that last concert. They were really trying hard, and maybe they had some monitoring, but they didn't have monitoring. They couldn't hear themselves. And when my stepsister saw the Beatles at the Indianapolis Convention Center in 64, 65, they had 2 Voice of the Theater Shure columns on either side of the stage. That was all they were using for PA, and you couldn't. My stepdad, who was there, took her to the show. He said you couldn't. It was just all you could hear was screaming. That's all you heard. I think once in my life, I did a show where the screaming was so loud that my ears distorted, and that was my band, my high school cover band, played at the 4-H fair at summer fair at we were indoors at Purdue University, and it was 3,000 kids in this basically gymnasium, and the couple of the lead singers were cute, so they just went gaga, and after every song they screamed like we were the Beatles. It was very surreal, and that was very odd. That's pretty much the only time I can remember that happening. I mean, I went to the Bieber concert and it was screaming after every song and everything, but people want to hear the music. And the PA systems are much better today. But the Beatles, kind of came in, they broke the ground on this. They didn't have PA systems. They're nothing like that. It was very minimal. And the monitoring wasn't even a concept. You're playing, you can hear each other. And it's like, no, they couldn't hear each other. I remember when they first came to the U.S. and they did the Ed Sullivan Show in New York, and then they did the show in Philadelphia at Freedom Center or something like that, where they're literally in the theater in the round, and they literally they get out and they turn the drums around a quarter and then turn it around again. I'm sure you've seen that. It's like they didn't even have roadies back then. I mean, it was like, what the heck? They're adjusting their own instruments and mics, and it's just like, it's so different. So they were breaking all that ground, and they put up with a lot. And so I think, yeah, it's much better now. It's taken care of now, and security is much better. All of that, but I feel like both that not only the Beatles can't happen again. I don't think they would have happened. There would have been anyone to take their place. I think their artistry, their creativity, their skill on so many levels was not something that any band had developed before. And very few bands since even have, I mean, I would say there are bands that, I mean, my favorite band right now is as old as not the band's not as old as I am, but they are. Radiohead. I love Radiohead. But I don't think they're doing anything anymore. I think they're done. I think Tom York's is doing his own thing. Johnny Greenwood's doing his own thing. So I think they're probably done. Oh, you're just asking that. What's my favorite mainstream artist? Yeah, so I mean, I really like Radiohead. I don't know. It's hard. I mean, I do music all day, so I don't really listen to a lot of music. But we just started watching Severance yesterday, which is really good on Apple. And the music is Teddy Shapiro. He's kind of an underrated film composer. I think he's winning awards now for this Severance. He primarily did comedies like Dodgeball and Tropic Thunder, things like that. He went to Juilliard. He studied with John Corigliano. But I messaged him on Instagram to tell him how much I liked his score, and he said thanks. So I don't know if it was him or his crew that replied, but I would love to work for him. He actually, I think, launched Ludwig Göransson's. Ludwig won the Oscar for Best Score for Oppenheimer, which is a great score. So yeah, I still, if I want to cry, I'll listen to OK Computer and just realize that I'll never make music as good as that, and that's why I cry. The Beatles, I mean, my favorite Beatles record is probably Abbey Road. It's probably Abbey Road. I really like Abbey Road, but it's more refined than White Album. White Album gives you more options, but again, by the time they got to White Album, man, heavy metal was already coming about, and hard rock, and then you had country rock, and that was big in the early '70s. Was Eagles and James Taylor and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, acoustic instruments. That was really big, and I think Rubber Soul kind of brought some of that on. And Rubber Soul, ironically, came about just right before Bob Dylan went electric, and then that changed things. And so, So I feel like, as far as artists right now, that's a toughie. I mean, I like James Blake. I like him. Again, it kind of reminds me of Radiohead, but he's a Canadian. I think he's really good. I don't know. I like whatever I'm working on. I'm working on a lot of game scores and movie scores and TV shows. So I try to be energized by whatever I'm working on and enjoy that. But as far as listening to music when I'm not working, that's not as likely. Although I do definitely hear music I'm really enjoying the music, like I said, on Severance. So if you have Apple TV, I'm sure you've already watched it, but you can subscribe for $10 a month, and you can, it's only got 2 seasons right now, so you can watch all 20 episodes easily in a month and then unsubscribe. That's the beauty of Apple. If you have an iPhone, you can just turn it on and off. Like if I turn it off right now, it'll give me the rest of my 29 days. So that's super nice. So we'll probably go through Apple and do a bunch of streaming and see what we like. But yeah, so I like creative people. I feel like it's interesting too, because the producer of and director of Severance is Ben Stiller. It's kind of an unexpected role for him. Grew up in the business. His parents are in the business, famous comedians. Not a huge fan of everything Ben's done, but boy, this is a really quality show. The acting is great. The visuals are great. They utilize this kind of 3-color trick that I watched a YouTube video on. It's kind of cool, where there's basically 3 colors in every scene. And then everything else is minor. Like the 3 colors occupy, 80% of what you're looking at. So it could be red, blue, and gray or something like that. And then they cut to another scene, and it's, it could be dark gray, light blue, and dark blue. it's really, really striking, but kind of depressing. And it seems like it's always winter there. I don't know if that's a thing. I'm still trying to figure out what the heck's going on. I don't want to give any spoilers. We're trying to be. It's called Severance, and you learn what that means in the first episode. So I'm not. It reminds me of a lot of things. Spotless Mind. What's that movie? The Spotless Mind movie. With Jim Carrey. Shoot, I can't think of it. But it's like, okay, is this that kind of thing? If you've ever seen that movie, a very good movie, is it that kind of thing? Is it, what is going on? Is it Matrix? It could be Matrix. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. One of my favorite movies is oh shoot, what's the Nolan's gosh, I can't think of the name of it. It's funny. Oh, not Metamorphosis. Gosh darn it! But I still don't know what it's about. Dang it! I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. Christopher Nolan. What was his first? Technically second movie, I think. Yeah, he's done Tenet, Interstellar, The Prestige, Inception, Oppenheimer. He's just Dunkirk is great. Batman Begins. Memento. Gosh, somebody said it, right? No, Memento is great, but I still don't know what it's about. And it's bloody. And it's kind of gross. But it's a really good film. Dark Knight, yeah, Inception, Batman Begins, but yeah. So he went from Memento to Batman Begins. That's pretty crazy. Inception is great. The only one I haven't seen is Tenet. I need to see Tenet. I think is it on any streamers? What streamers is it on? TBS, don't have that. TNT, don't have. So I'm going to have to wait for it to show up on something. In theaters? Really? It's in theaters. Really? Where? Sorry, we didn't find showtimes. Oh, well then why do you have that link on there? IMDb. I'm talking to you. So, yeah, I think the Beatles were a perfect storm. If you think a band would have taken their place, are they a band that exists? Like you'd think, oh, well, 5 years later, maybe Pink Floyd would energize the world. But I don't know, because the Beatles created the culture and the movement and the money that allowed bands like Pink Floyd and Zeppelin and bands like the Genesis to actually be created. I don't know that they, would have been created. And again, the last week's talk was about would the Beatles be famous if Sgt. Pepper's was their first record? And I said no, we'd never heard of them. They had to buy the listeners' patience with pop songs, silly pop songs, and those listeners then grew up with the Beatles. But if your first record was frickin' brilliant, but nobody understood it, or nobody would take the time to listen to it 3, 4, 5 times to be able to get it. It's like the first time you heard Peppers, and I remember, it's like, what are they doing? What the heck is this? I can vaguely remember the first time hearing the songs off that, like, Strawberry Fields Forever. I'm like, this is a weird song, but then it just became Strawberry Fields Forever, and you loved it, and you could sing along with it. You got it. You understood what they were going for. And I love that about the Beatles. They weren't trying to sell records. They were trying to create something that they liked and they thought was interesting. And it sold. But that's not, sadly, that's not going to happen for most people. Bieber, he can do, like, I think the record he's working on right now, the little things that I've been hearing from, like, the stuff that he's, like, listen, I think his new record is going to be going in a pseudo Grateful Dead direction. Very organic. It could be all the, it could be all of the mushrooms and the weed, but I feel like, I feel like it's that maybe that's where they're going. They haven't called me for anything. I don't even know where they are. I don't know if they're in LA or no. They were at Disneyland the other day, so they must be in LA. But I don't think they're at Henson. That's expensive. And so, like you say, the label is like he's still signed to Universal, as far as I know, and they're probably like, yeah, we're not going to spend that kind of money. Home studios are where it's at for now, and that's totally fine. To be honest, I recorded ETA right here in my home studio, so it's not like you need to be in, the studio that we would go to for Justin was Henson Studio, which is the old A&M studio. We were in Studio 1 or Studio A, I can't remember, the big studio, which is where they filmed that. Where they recorded "We Are the World." So if you watch that, it's a great documentary. If you haven't watched on Netflix, the Greatest Night in Pop, that's the room that Justin would block book. We'd be in there for weeks and months. So yeah, it's I don't think the label's gonna spend that kind of money. Now, talk about labels and streaming. Labels have never made more profit, so they're happy with streaming for the most part. The first second sound like it's working. Oh, how have you heard It's Working? Is that out there? That's one that I didn't think was released. Oops. Or I don't really have to worry about playing it here, but it's working. Working. Funny, I don't know what this is.
My wife was murdered.
Sorry.
I want to go after Sarah's.
Put it in my chest. Do it now.
Oh, right. That is me. That's my lexicon rig. And it's not actually how I played it. They edited it. I think I did, that's A minor. I think I went. Yeah, because it never got released, I could kind of rework it. I think I originally went. Well, wonder if I could find that. The original. I did something. I think I did a bar of 7 or something. It was weird what I originally did. And then I think that was chopped up by, it's so funny, Justin playing with, messing with a left-handed. What is this video from? You asked me to come over. You said that you would be alone. And when I got there, someone said no. You gotta play these games with me. Yeah, I wish this one would have come out because this one probably would have been a hit. So then I would have owned 10% of a hit or whatever I think they gave me 10% of that. Just for that. But again, because they took this. They did. Let me see if I can find it. I have a hard drive here. It's pretty old though. Let's see, Music 2. I doubt it's on that hard drive. It would be fun to find it. How far back does this go? 2015? It could be. Maybe this is it? Man, so many hooks that I wrote. Yeah, not that one. That's close though. A lot of the same kind of vibes. That's cool. I don't know what the heck that was. I have to pull this. I'm gonna have to check this out. All right, so it was technically A minor, I guess. So let me search here. Let me search this folder for A minor. I don't know what the tempo is. That's why I write that stuff in the name so that I can find it easier later. Well, apparently not there. Okay, so let's see what else. Oh yeah, this is one I did. Check this out. Yeah, let's see. You know what that is? I got hired to replace Ed Sheeran's guitars on that, but they didn't end up using that. Yeah, this was the squeal. There's a lot of noise in that. Yeah, so let's see. What's in here? No. Yeah, so many hook ideas that never got used. No, that's actually Josh's track. Let's see. Yeah, this is one he wrote to. Yeah, he wrote to that, but never got released. So many of these. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know. It's around somewhere, but it's pretty old because I recorded it with my Lexicon rig, and it was this like a triplet, bum bum bum, like that kind of thing, delays, which is really cool, ping pong delays, which is fun to play with. You know, that's one of my tricks when I'm writing is, and right now my nails suck, but I get a sound that I like that's inspiring to me, and then I start writing. So it starts there. It starts with noodling around until I get a sound that I think is interesting. I mean, that one that I just played, where was that? I'm gonna pull this. I'm gonna open this session up. Yeah, close this one. I'm gonna do some more videos. I gotta do a video for a game score that I worked on. It's about to come out, so I gotta talk about it. Oh, I gotta be careful with all these inputs. Yeah, so many cool. I probably should. I generally, when I create a hook, when I create a hook, I generally don't send it to anyone else. Wow. I like that. guitar. Now, how is that one guitar? Wow, that's cool. I don't know what I did there. You know, I was in the zone on so many of these ideas because I was trying to strike while the iron was hot. You know, when they were coming to me for ideas and then they were literally writing to them the next day, it was like, dang, I'm going to create more ideas. So I was in a mental zone where I was just a machine. I mean, I just look at this one session and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 ideas. It's crazy. It's crazy. And so yeah, that was definitely a case of striking while the iron was hot. But that's just one session. I open up a session, I just start. The key is find a sound you like, then just start playing until you get something that's like, okay, that's cool. Try to do things that are weird. And you got to still do things that are kind of within the pop realm. In other words, you're going to want to, you know, do a progression that's going to be in one key. You're not going to really want to modulate too much. You could do like a Spanish pop thing where you go to the major 5 in a minor key, kind of thing, like an E7 or to an A minor. But yeah, that's weird. I wonder. Now, it sounds like I have an auto on. So that's a B flat. So do I have a capo on? No, not this capo. What note was that? I thought it was a B flat. What's that? No, it was. What is that? Weird. So it's like what I'm hearing. Oh, it's A. Why did I hear those people? I'm just out of tune from that, whatever it is. Oh, that's. Yeah, I don't know. That's crazy. Maybe I did play it like that. Yeah, that's cool. It's cool. I mean, like, it's funny to not be able to figure out my own thing. All right, so I gotta get going on stuff. I got stuff I gotta get done today. I'm gonna try to finish my taxes. Oh my gosh, I don't want to do that. So hard to sit down and work on those. But the I was gonna talk about, you know, too. Also, I'm thinking about doing a video live stream on playing in 12/8. So yeah, well, I was doing a lot of RB stuff back in that era. Oh wow, 2 hours. Has it been 2 hours? Oh dang, I need to stop. I hope this was worth hanging out together. As long as you guys are talking amongst yourselves, I feel like you got community. It's a couple hours out of the week where you're feeling like you're not alone in this world. So I definitely feel that way when I'm with you guys. So I appreciate that. It's hard. This is a job that originally was in it. When I moved out here, it was a team sport. You had to be, to make music, you had to be with other musicians. And it's the opposite now. I'm spending most of my time alone, so it's really hard. I lost feeling in my legs. Yeah, me too. I haven't stood up in 2 hours. I'm gonna make a horrible noise when I finally do. All right. Well, God bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching. And I have no idea what I'm going to talk about next week, but maybe we'll talk about if the Beatles, would somebody have taken the Beatles' place? You already know how I feel about that. I said no. I say it was two storms, an earthquake and a tornado at the same time. It's just not going to happen. So, all right. God bless you all. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next Monday, Lord willing. Bye-bye.